Hey guys, Sky here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to try and combine a short story with a speed art. The only problem is I haven't written the short story yet, so let's get into that. Alright, I took some time to go on some adventures and work on writing the short story. Now that that is complete, let's combine it with a speed art.
A lone sailor traveled the vast sea in search of a vicious monster. His small ship crashed through the rough water. It fought through the high waves and dove down steep crests. It battled through the sea. Each wave resounded across its hull like the rumble of an avalanche. The wind bellowed against the mast with the might of giants. The sail whipped and snapped at its violence. A storm was forming above. The wind grew wicked as the lungs of red clouds swirled into a thunderhead. The dark claws of its expanse shadowed all in sight. It wrapped around the horizon, sea and sky battling for dominance over the earth. Through this mighty contest, the small ship sailed. The mast and rigging strained at the strength of the storm, but the ship was strong and its pilot determined. They would see the storm through and many more at that. The lone sailor possessed a fire that was greater than any wind or wave. Alone he kept the vessel on its course. Through sea spray and vicious wind he kept on. Nothing was going to steer him from his purpose. He eyed the tossing sea with a steely gaze. For years he had trained and prepared for this voyage, driven by an inner fire. And the fire was strong. Now the hardened sailor was finally on the hunt. On the hunt for the source of his misery and rage. On the hunt for the object of his anger. He was on the hunt for the monster that had slain his only brother. After 40 days on the cruel sea, the sailor finally found what he was looking for. The monster that had killed his brother was at hand. The sailor pulled hard on the steering oar, turning his ship in pursuit of the creature. He adjusted the rigging and trimmed the sail to maximize its speed. The small ship flew across the sea, jumping over foaming waves as if it was fueled by the sailor's burning revenge. The dark form of the creature loomed on the horizon. It curled in and out of the depths, its hideous length a tangle of jagged scales and seagrass. As the warrior neared, the ancient creature turned. It eyed the ship and sailor for a moment. Then, in an explosion of movement, it spiraled forward. Its green eyes ablaze, it curled in and out of the waves toward its prey, the sea thrown aside before its mighty form. Crashing across the waves, the ship and serpent collided, with a violent splintering timber and bone. The sailor slammed into the serpent, driving a large axe deep into its scales. The monster recoiled and lashed out. The sailor dodged and buried another axe into its side. The serpent lunged and arched over the ship, trailing strong ropes from the two axes wedged in its side. Grabbing one of the ropes, the sailor spun the ship out from under the serpent just before its arching body crashed into the waves. The sailor threw heavy nets at the serpent's descending form. He watched as they caught on the massive silver scales. Like the dozens of nets he had thrown before. The dozens of nets he had thrown with his brother. For a moment he was lost in the past. His brother pulling in nets of fish. The villagers smiled as they received the bounty. A man that would give, regardless of qualms or slights. His brother should not have been the one to die. The serpent exploded from the depths, trailing nets and splintered beams. The sailor was instantly snapped back to the present. The serpent lunged, and with a yell of rage, the sailor leapt to meet it. Narrowly avoiding the monster's teeth, the sailor sunk 2 axes deep into the serpent's hide. The serpent recoiled and bashed at the ship in retaliation. The sailor was thrown to the deck, and the serpent dove. The sailor desperately chopped at the rigging. With a wicked crack, heavy ropes and pulleys snapped at the serpent's face, bashing it aside. The sailor scrambled to his feet, barely avoiding the creature's second lunge. He lashed out at it with his axe, but it dodged his strike. With a whip of its tail, it flung the sailor to the ground, and before he could react, yanked him into the air with its jagged teeth. The sailor hung inches in front of the monster's green eyes as it pulled him higher and higher, its teeth biting deep into his arm. He glared at the serpent full of hate and rage. This monster had killed his brother, and now it was gonna pay. The sailor ripped a knife from his belt and jammed it deep into the serpent's eye. The serpent dropped the sailor to the deck and let out a horrid, croaking cry. The sailor rolled and grabbed at the many ropes that now hung from the creature. Catching hold of one, he wound it around 2 others and cinched them tight. Dodging the serpent's now half-blind attacks, he began tightening the vast tangled web of ropes and nets. Although it grew ever more restricted by the ropes and nets, the serpent was a vicious adversary, and the two fought late into the night. The monster and the man struggled, till the sea was red with blood, and the waves tossed with scales and timber. The red sunset gave way to the white of the moon. The harsh light cast jagged shadows over the pitching sea. The shapes of the small ship and the writhing serpent danced on the dark waves. In the gray of the early morning, the warrior struck one last mighty blow, and the serpent fell before him. Its long, jagged form was tangled in nets and heavy rope, its hide pierced with many axes. It stretched across the gray sea, bleached of color and lifeless. The warrior fell before the creature, tears of utter loss and sorrow filling his eyes. He yelled at the heavens, his voice a husky wail. His brother was dead, and nothing he could do would bring him back. The warrior slumped forward, the echoes of his cries lost in the vastness. He hung his head in sorrow. He was alone on the open sea, a small silhouette on the high waves.
And there we have it. That was the attempt at meshing a short story with speed art. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun and a lot of work to make. Like, I was not expecting how long this would take to make. There's a lot of finessing and re-editing, and even right now this is like the second time I'm putting in an outro to this to try and get the feel of this video right. But yeah, let me know in those comments down below what you thought of this video, any changes you'd like to see to these, because I definitely want to keep trying to do these videos and come up with new and creative ways to tell stories and do artwork on this channel. So yeah, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time. Stay creative.